Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar, Hiring and Retaining the Next Generation of Skilled Trade Talent. We're so glad you could join us here today. We're going to give it just a minute and then we'll get started. Thanks again for joining us. And as you're joining, just a quick reminder, we'd love to make this as interactive as possible, so please drop any questions you have into the question box there. I'll be moderating those throughout the conversation and at the end. You're welcome to join in the chat as well. If you hear anything you want to comment on or resources to share, we'd love to hear from you. All right. Well, it looks like I'm getting my cue and it is time to get started. So welcome everyone to today's webinar, Hiring and Retaining the Next Gen of Skilled Trade Talent. My name is Leslie Vickrey. I'm the CEO and founder of ClearEdge, and I'm so honored to have the chance to moderate this talk with all of you in attendance and on behalf of PrideStaff, a company deeply committed to helping the businesses it serves manage the complexities and challenges of the transforming workforce. This is the second time that I get to moderate one of their webinars, so if you were on the first, welcome back. And if this is your first time joining us, thank you so much for being here with us today. And speaking of transforming a workforce, that's exactly why we're here today. As employers of skilled labor, some of you may already see and be feeling the challenges of our national workforce firsthand. So just a few things here that I know that we see, or different people have seen. If you see it, it's in the struggle to really recruit and retain strong workers. It's the complexities of managing really generations, multiple generations with different expectations, and in the work to skill and reskill talent as the world of work, as we know it, just continues to change. So as long as professional in the employment space, as long as I've been here, so over 20 years, I've also watched and seen really the world of skilled labor change in big, big ways again and again. We saw early automations a few decades ago. We've seen the wave, a big wave of global outsourcing, and today with even more automation. So now we hear about demographic cliffs, the silver tsunamis, and the great hop to the tool belt generation, which is a lot of what we're going to talk about here today, and wondering what that skilled labor workforce and the businesses who rely on it are seeing. So today we have a lot to learn about. I have to say, when I saw the lineup, I was really excited to be able to moderate this conversation. So thank you, PrideStaff, for bringing together such experienced talent and sharp minds. We are going to actually start this webinar with a keynote address from Ron Hetrick. He is a senior labor economist with Lightcast, and I'm really looking forward to learning from you here today, Ron. And we're also really grateful to have the tremendous experience and passion from Genelle Kumpe, who is the CEO of San Joaquin Valley Manufacturing Alliance and Fresno Business Council. Genelle, thank you for taking the time to share really what you're seeing on the ground floor, and the world of manufacturing. So thank you for helping us all understand really the real world impacts of what we're about to talk about here today. And I want to welcome back Sean Akin, who's the VP of Branch Operations at PrideStaff. We're so happy to have you back here again for a second conversation. And really, you're the expert in engaging, recruiting, managing, and developing skilled labor force. So Sean, I know, and talking to you, you're excited about today as I am to learn from the fellow speakers. I have to say, I am equally excited to learn here from you and to just hear about the challenges you're seeing on the front lines of talent recruitment and engagement. So before we get to Ron's presentation, I would like to have each of our speakers do a brief introduction. And we always like to mix it up a little bit with something fun. And in addition to sharing a little bit about yourself, a starter question I have for you, which could make for some really great resources for everyone on the line. What are you watching, listening to, or reading right now? And this could be work related or just for fun, whatever really is inspiring or entertaining you today. And to be fair, I'll start with that so I can give you all a minute to think about how you're going to answer that question before I hand it over to you, Ron, to introduce yourself. Again, I'm Leslie Vickrey. As I mentioned, I'm the CEO and founder of ClearEdge. We're a marketing, talent development, and recruitment business. And I've spent over the last 2 decades really servicing that space. So to answer that question, I'm going to share with you, I'm actually going to answer all three. So my guilty pleasure watching right now, season 3 of White Lotus is out. I don't know if there's any other fans here, but that is what I'm watching. I'm reading Mel Robbins, The Let Them, as someone with a pretty strong type A personality. This has been life-changing and transformational for me. So Mel Robbins, The Let Them Theory. And I'm a parent of an 8-year-old boy, Grayson, and I'm listening to a lot of parenting podcasts. And one that's really resonating with me right now is Dr. Becky Kennedy. So those are my 3 things. Ron, I'm going to turn it over to you if you wouldn't mind doing a brief intro and answering that question for us as well.
All right, so I am Ron Hetrick, Senior Economist at Lightcast. You're going to be hearing a lot about what it is that I focus on in a little bit. Lightcast, in case you don't know, is a labor data company. So kind of looking at real-time supply, demand, advertised wages, what skill sets are emerging in the market, which ones are fading away, all of those things. As for what I won't really say what I'm reading. I tend to read autobiographies, and I'm not reading any right now, but I love music, like musician autobiographies. I just got done with the last season of Only Murders in the Building. I love Shrinking. I can't wait for that one to come out. And outside of that, I've been watching just a ton of like videos and perspectives on AI, some of which you're going to hear some of my thoughts on that today.
Oh, great. I can't wait. Cannot wait to hear those. So thank you. Thank you, Ron. Excited for your talk here in a minute. Okay, Genelle, now up to you. It's your turn.
Yeah, great. Good morning, everyone. My name's Genelle Taylor Kumpe, and I'm proud to lead both the Fresno Business Council and the San Joaquin Valley Manufacturing Alliance, 2 organizations that share a commitment to growing our region's economy and really empowering the workforce. At FBC, my focus is on really driving initiatives that boost Fresno's and the surrounding region's economic vitality, and we believe by investing in education, training, and workforce readiness, we're really helping to build a foundation for professional success. Stronger business means stronger community, and we are also committed to engaging next generation of business leaders and raising awareness about the importance of civic stewardship in both business success and community progress. And with the SJVMA, I advocate for the manufacturing sector in the San Joaquin Valley, and we're dedicated to strengthening the industry through workforce development, education, and policy advocacy. And just to answer your question, I just picked up the book, The Once and Future Worker by Orrin Cass. He's the founder and chief economist for American Compass, and this book is amazing, and I truly recommend it for anyone. It's really advocates for a shift towards policies that value work as the foundation of a thriving society, emphasizing job quality, skill development, and community investment. So it's a great segue into what we're talking about today.
Well, perfect segue. Thank you so much, Genelle. Really appreciate you sharing, and I look forward to learning from you here today. All right, Sean, do you want to round us out with an introduction and share a little bit about what you're up to personally?
Yeah, so I'm Sean Akin. I've been in the staffing industry for the last 15 years. I'm still boots on the ground. You know, I'm in the chair every day, helping individuals, communicating with them, and connecting with customers across the country. I am emphasized out of Fresno. That is the majority of my time, but I do support our national accounts. Reading, I don't read. I'm not a big book reader. I read the Wall Street Journal from front to back every single morning, and so that is kind of my piece that I like to do. It's my guilty pleasure, I guess. And in regards to what am I watching, I am starting baseball season for my 8-year-old son, and I'm the head coach. So wow. I am watching a lot of different videos on how to help with batting and wide variety of tasks, because I could see that I know what to do, and I'm just trying to find a way to communicate to them for them to know what to do in a way they can understand. So that has been a lot of my YouTube history is baseball videos.
Oh, good. Well, Sean, it's not for baseball. I live in Breckenridge, so a lot of it is skiing with our son, but I'll love to share some notes with you on that, just parenting and coaching and giving advice to kids when they don't necessarily want to hear it from us. So with that, on how to do that, it's a talent and a skill. Thank you again, Sean, for being here. Okay, with that, again, I just want to remind everyone, please, as you hear Ron, Genelle, and Sean talk and us have this conversation, think about questions you'd like to ask, drop them into the questions, add any comments or feedback you have and resources in the chat. And without further ado, Ron, I can't wait to hear what you have to say. The floor is all yours.
All right, so I need my screen control here. There we go. All right. Let's do this. All right, so hopefully you're all seeing this. Okay, first things first, if you've ever heard me speak before, you will notice very quickly that this is not my normal speaking voice. I've managed to get laryngitis like all of America seems to be sharing. So I'm going to do my best to power through this. It's worth it, even with a gravelly voice. The things I'm going to say today, I think you're going to find very, very interesting. So a little bit about me, if you don't know, a couple of years ago, I was the lead author of an article called The Demographic Drought. And we talked in that article about how everything's kind of shifting in society, the aging of people, but really not so much just the aging of people, but what happens to your labor force as this population ages. When we did that, after getting out, kind of speaking on the road about that, something really started eating at me. Well, that caused another piece of research to be written that was called Who is Going to Do the Work? And in that one, we interviewed 1,500 high school students and we asked them, what are you going to do when you get out of high school? And we asked them a lot of questions about skilled trades, like why wouldn't you go into skilled trades? It was a very fascinating piece of research. I highly recommend it. And then lastly, after we wrote Demographic Drought, we wrote that in 21. Well, the world was completely crazy then. And we had to make a lot of predictions about how we thought things were going to kind of work out in the long run. Well, after a couple of years, we could see the trends so much more clearly. So we decided to update Demographic Drought, and that became The Rising Storm, which was released towards the end of last year. If you haven't read it, I highly suggest doing that. What you're going to get today is just a small piece of that, as I use it to kind of set up the situation that we're in right now. So with that in mind, it is all about what you keep hearing is called the silver tsunami. So with the silver tsunami, you have a situation where, whoops, let me go back, sorry. This is the 46 to 64-year-old, the people who were born from 46 to 64, were kind of working their way through our economy. It ended up giving us a very huge labor force back in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. Well, as these people start, getting towards retirement age and they start leaving the labor force, just like a tsunami, you don't feel the wave when it's in the ocean, but you feel the wave now, because that's when the wave comes to shore is when the impact is most significantly felt. So what's happened is there's a mindset that we acquired over these couple decades about endless supplies of people to fill all kinds of jobs. The way we started to think about things like immigration, which I'm going to be talking about a lot today, all of this is shaped during this time frame. However, the conditions of that time frame are no longer the conditions that we're facing right now. If you kind of look at it, this group of people, these baby boomers, are now the fourth largest part of our labor force. So they are no longer a kind of a meaningfully sized labor pool anymore. Millennials are the biggest, Gen X second, Gen Z passed up the baby boomers in the past 2 years. But the impact of the boomers is being felt everywhere. And we're going to need to understand that as I start going through these slides today. You're going to start to understand how this is kind of impacting us. This overwhelming messaging that we've been getting for decades is starting to have a serious negative effect when once it was actually having a positive effect. So with that in mind, in recent years, we went through what would be the outrans of a storm. So the whole point of Rising Storm is to say anything we felt to this point is not the storm. It's only the outer bands. In the article, we talk in depth about why are we saying this? Why are we saying that what is coming is way worse than anything that we've felt to this point? We kind of go into the math. I'll be doing some of that today. But what happened was during the pandemic, we had a bunch of people who dropped out of the labor force, and our labor force participation rate really took a big hit. Through all of this time, it never got better. In fact, it was like almost immediately overnight, 5 million people left the labor force. So it's basically, they didn't die, they just ceased to want to work or be in a labor force anymore. This was not something we were prepared for. It was quite a shock to the system. What happens though, is when you retire, you go from somebody who was producing and consuming a good to just a consumer of the good. And the problem is for the next 8 years, we are producing a tremendous amount of consumers, but we do not have a lot of people producing to take care of this consuming population. What is kind of compounding this and what's kind of a key aspect of what we're going to be talking about today is this double whammy that we're kind of getting, where we're seeing this disappearance of our prime age labor pool for men and the way that our labor pool is now being comprised. If we look at the labor force participation rate for men 25 to 54 over the past several decades, you can see that it has just been in an absolute free fall. It took a huge hit during the pandemic, started to recover, but that's even kind of misleading, even that recovery right there. But this is something that we have to understand. Men have been dropping out of the labor pool, especially prime age men. If we look, here are jobs. The percentages you're seeing is the percentage of people in these jobs that are men. Okay, so if we look across the US, 98% of our plumbers are men, 90% of our auto technicians, men, carpenters, 97. You can see over and over again, when it comes to skilled trades, these jobs are dominated by men. So if our male labor force is less interested in working, then that's already kind of presenting a problem. It's a problem that has been happening for at least a decade now. But you need to understand what's happening behind this. And here's where it lies. We have a very old perception of who we are as a country, as a labor force. Most people don't understand that our labor force is highly, highly educated. The largest portion of our labor force has a bachelor's degree or higher. 65 million people in our labor force have a bachelor's degree or higher. Another 36 million have an associate's degree. On the left side are people who only have a high school diploma or less. Now, inherently, you would want to look at this and go, well, that's good, right? That would be, I think that's good, right? Everybody has a college degree. Well, here's the problem. Not only do we have a very educated labor force, that's all we're adding to our labor force. So in the past, basically 5 to 6 years, if we go back to 2019 and go to now, the labor force overall has experienced net growth of 6.4 million. All of the growth in our labor force has been people with a bachelor's degree. In order to arrive at a net, you have to subtract, and that subtraction are people who only have high school diplomas or less. That is presenting a huge problem because about 60% of all the open jobs in this country do not need a bachelor's degree, and most of them don't even need an associate's degree. That's causing this kind of crazy war for talent in areas we never thought were ever going to happen. All we heard through the 90s, early 2000s was war for talent, STEM jobs, technical jobs, engineers, IT workers. But that's actually switching now. Now we have this incredible war for talent for just people who will show up and do service jobs, who will do those kind of hard in-person jobs. That's why we're seeing wages shooting up constantly in this bucket, because everybody's trying to hire someone who doesn't exist anymore, and they're disappearing rapidly every single day. If you look at the top 10 jobs that are most posted in this country right now, the number one job is registered nurses, and that's got a clear lead on everybody else. That requires a college degree. Not the next 9 jobs outside of maybe sales reps, which sometimes does require it. These jobs do not require a college degree of any kind. So retail sales, truck drivers, customer service reps, home health aides, you can kind of see the list here. This is what the country needs to survive. This is what it needs to maintain its economy. We are a service-based economy, but there's no one here to serve us, is the way I always like to say it. Here's the problem. Nursing is the #1 most in-demand job in this country, but if we look at college degrees last year, only 4% of people who received a college degree did it in nursing. 18% received a business administration degree. At no point in Rising Storm and at no point today will you hear me say that we are lacking people with a business degree. We have them in spades. So this is a lot of where we're seeing this kind of mismatch over what we're producing and what is being consumed. So we're kind of in this permanent help wanted state, but not in the way that we're used to. Some research just came out in the past 2 weeks. For people who are graduating college right now, they have a higher unemployment rate. 20 to 24-year-olds have a higher unemployment rate if they went to college than if they didn't go to college. It might be a shocking stat because that's the first time that that's happened. It's been happening over the past couple of years. You can see our economy desperately looking for people to do the work that keeps the society functioning. And it's not exactly what we're producing. So that is our backdrop, okay? You have to understand those things. Those are so critical to every single thing you're seeing in the news right now. You have to know this backdrop. So let's talk about our current economy. First off, we are still at a relatively all-time historical low in unemployment. It's been going down the past couple months. It's about 4% right now. As you know, back in 21 and 22, it got down to all-time historical lows, and we saw incredible wage push inflation during this time. Through all of the Fed's rate increases, we just have not been able to increase our unemployment rate because there's just not enough people out there. If we were to look at our fundamentals, this economy is doing really well. Another thing, because there's a lot of political swing on news that's out there, but I don't want anybody to be mistaken. Historically speaking, this is a very strong economy. This is real GDP growth is the bottom. The top is real personal consumption expenditures. So this is people buying things. We are buying things. Don't let anybody tell you we're not buying things. We're actually doing a great job buying things. Real GDP has not been producing to its full capacity since prior to the pandemic because we have a labor shortage. All of these people who keep saying, we're going to have a recession, we're going to have a recession. Well, it's hard to recess when you're already recessed. We cannot produce to our full capacity, and that's causing systemic problems. If we look at things like core manufacturing, new orders, core manufacturing shipments, they're all hovering at their all-time record levels. Yes, they were helped there by inflation, but in a weakening economy, they would go down regardless, as you can see as you go through all of the other recessionary times. They are showing no signs whatsoever of giving up where they're at. Advanced retail sales are also doing incredibly well. I just saw something the other day saying, oh, this huge plunge in retail sales. No, there's not a huge plunge in retail sales. Don't get caught up in a single month's movement. The general trend is very favorable. Well, it should be because we only have 4% unemployment. That's a lot of people who have money and can spend money. So if that is the case, then we have a very interesting thing happening in our industrial and logistics space. First off, if we look at things like just the demand for laborers, skilled trades, put them all together. So skilled trades, laborers, construction workers, we can see that job postings are way, way off of where they were. Well, they're off of where they were because back in 21 and 22, we couldn't fill those jobs. So this is interesting. So there are less postings now, even though we know demand is going up. We don't believe this drop in postings is because we are seeing less demand. There's no evidence to back that up. Somehow we're filling these jobs. Second, the unemployment rate for people with a production occupation is hovering at its all-time historical low. The unemployment rate on the bottom right for people who do maintenance techs, a lot of the skilled trades that you see, install, maintenance, repair techs, also hovering at all-time historical lows. You can see that wages for things like warehouse workers, which you're seeing above, are going straight up. If demand were truly dropping, then you would not see wages continuing to go up. This means there's still a lot of pressure in our hiring labor pool to find workers, or else we'd be able to correct this kind of thing and lower these wages. But as you can see, we are dealing with all-time historical lows in these. We have unemployment claims that are also close to all-time historical lows. In fact, we have as many people collecting unemployment now as we had in 1970, when we had 104% fewer people than we have now. Just looking at something like in California, once again, warehouse workers way down, pay rates going up. What's happening? Here's what's happening. When you go back to 1995 and go to now, foreign-born men have grown in this country by 7.5 million. The native-born male population, prime age population, 25 to 54, is actually shrunk by 2 million. Foreign-born men used to be 1 in 10 of our prime age employed males. Now they're 1 in 4. And they're working in a lot of these jobs like staffing companies place that you see in skilled trades, that you see in manufacturing plants. This is a significant aspect of explaining things. Go back to 2019 and go to now, and you will realize that 80% of all of the growth in our labor force has come through immigration. 80%. It's about 5 million. Only 1.2 million of our labor force increase came through native-born people. If we look at different industries, their dependence on immigration is grown dramatically. Construction, up to about 1 in every 3 workers now is foreign-born. And you can see this going down through here. If we kind of go back from 2010 to 2023 and we look at the percentage gain in workers in these various industries, you can see that for several industries, the native-born working population has actually shrunk. Immigration is how we've increased all of these kind of critical key industries that kind of keep the economy running. So at the bottom, as you can see, like warehousing, that's kind of logistics, how we're moving products around. Construction, manufacturing, you can see kind of going up through. Only a couple of cases do we see the native-born one outpacing the foreign-born. But you have to understand, this is not a political conversation. We just have to understand, how is work getting done? Right now, we're basically bringing people in to do that. If you're in California, for example, then this is obviously a massive need. 33% of California's labor force is foreign-born. 3.5 million of those people are legal citizens. 3.1 million of them are non-citizens. They are 37% work in management and business, 21% in service occupations. Going to the right side, 48% of the construction and maintenance workers in California are foreign-born. 1 out of every 2. About 1 out of every 2 of our production warehousing people working in California are foreign-born. 40% of the service workers, so think your restaurants, industries like that, are foreign-born. So basically, the bottom line for employers is, if you are currently employing a lot of non-citizen immigrants, and I don't want you to think about yourself, but I also want you to think about those around you. If we were to see a lot of deportations, understand those workers will need to be replaced. And you'll be dipping into a labor pool that doesn't exist to replace those workers. It's a very competitive labor pool. If you're not an employer, as I said below, if the people who do employ these people do not have them anymore, then they're going to come after your workers. So you will need to be ready with a strategy for how you're going to retain these people if people start going after them, paying them way more than they were currently making. I want to touch on one other sector really quickly, and that's finance and insurance and banking. I'm going to use this as a basically an overall view into the office world. What are we seeing in the office world? You know, once again, we're still kind of dealing with some relatively low unemployment rates here, but we know that demand is way down. We call it the white collar malaise. There's not a whole lot of hiring going on. In fact, if we look at things like recruiters, which is a great lead indicator for whether we see these companies hiring in the future, recruiter job postings have absolutely hit the floor, and they have not recovered in 2 years. Here's the deal. In banking, when they started raising interest rates, employment got annihilated. They've lost 159,000 people since peaking in 2021. If you can look at the bottom, you can see that a lot of this hiring that occurred in 21, 22 were people taking out mortgages, but we don't do that anymore. We're not really selling a whole lot of homes. Homes are very overvalued right now, and the people who buy them are using cash to do that. So it's really affected this industry. But there are securities and commodities brokers that are growing. Insurance is growing. It's not across the board. So in the end, what we're looking at is, as we look at this year, we know that there are constraints in the labor supply for light industrial, for logistics, through skilled trades. And that's going to have an effect if we start to see that labor pool. Like I said, if there's deportations, you have to think about these things. And in the professional side, there's just a lot of funk going on. It does not look like interest rates will be brought down this year. That's kind of what we were waiting for to unleash this sector, and it's not happening yet. The last thing I want to touch on is artificial intelligence. So a lot of people look at things right now in artificial intelligence and they go, well, this is going to come for our jobs. And the reality is it's not coming for the jobs that we see the problems in. Where it's targeting are professional jobs because they're trying to see how they can make the money back that they've invested in it, which is a very, very large sum. And they're not going to make it back by selling to an individual construction firm or a small manufacturing plant. They need large corporations who can write very large checks. So if you look at where we see exposure, it's business analysts, it's financial managers and accountants and all of these types of things. It's not coming for a lot of the jobs that we are seeing these profound shortages in. And then there's this whole concept of, well, what if the AI bubble pops? And there's a lot of reasons why that could happen. It could happen even this year. If that happens, then a lot of other industries could be affected by that as well. But it just presents a lot of things that we have to understand. Most AI companies do not run a profit. There's a lot of things that are getting very competitive in that space. So all of the promise that it has, we have to be careful of where are they applying that? And is that going to help alleviate labor shortages in the industries that we see are going to be most affected, like manufacturing? The very final thing I want to say is what can be fixed starts off with you changing your mindset. As employers, first and foremost, we use technology. We've done everything we could to keep everybody away from us. Now we have to figure out how we're going to redo all of this to get people in front of us with the core skill sets we need. If you're trying to hire locally, get great at mentoring, get great at training, get people in with a basic skill set and turn them into what you need. It's all about finding those people that have, hey, will they show up to work? Can they communicate well? And do they work hard? If you give me that, I'll teach them everything else. That's what we haven't been doing for 30 or 40 years. You can partner with schools and universities. You've got to work on your marketing. You don't just put up hey, I need an electrician apprentice. That's it. Okay, great. That's not going to compel people versus companies that have a very slick way of advertising themselves to the market. You have to understand you're competing with people. What is the sell about what you do? And then this whole concept of skill development. There are high schools. I go all over the country and speak to people. And I'm going to tell you, when I get done, I will tell you that high schools, trade schools, community colleges constantly come up to me and go, we are always looking for businesses to tell us what they want. Have you done that? Have you partnered with people and said, this is what we're looking for? We'll take your grads. Hey, can we start to get our people involved in those programs so that we can make sure these people are being trained in a certain way? These places want to return value. There are all kinds of community and government programs to help people get paid for the skill training that is needed. There are all kinds of online research programs out there, but you need to understand the value of upskilling. And this is the final slide I have. What's lost in the messaging is this. If I'm 18 and the second I get out of high school, I become an electrician helper, I make $22.46. If I then become an electrician, full electrician by maybe 21, 22, I am now up to $35. These are all seeing really big pay increases. Let's say by 25, 28, I have applied and have done the work and I'm now a master electrician. Now I'm making $42 an hour and I'm not yet even 30 years old. There are a lot of college degree jobs that don't pay that well, but we have lost the message. You have to fight to get that message back. You have to demand to be heard. This is what I wanted to share with you today. Like I said, if you want a whole lot more, read Rising Storm. That's the QR code to read Rising Storm. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I'm always putting up very provocative things that come across that I get interested in. But otherwise, I will turn this back over.
Oh my goodness. Ron, first of all, thank you so much for being here today. I know your voice, I can feel this for you, but I have to say the passion that you share in coming through this is really incredible. So thank you so much for bringing that today. And I have to say, I was like taking notes, can't wait to hear this again. I learned quite a bit from you today. So really a master class for all of us. as we face as employers. So you've given us a lot to talk about. I have so many questions for you and so much on my mind just listening to it. And I think it's something that we can think of for our families, friends, anyone in the workforce who is thinking about what their future is and what we need. So thank you again for that, truly. Again, questions can be entered in through the system here. If you have any comments or things that you'd like to share based on Ron's chat, anything that stood out to you as well, please drop it in to keep the conversation going on that front. In the meantime, Genelle, I'm going to ask you actually the first question coming out of Ron's talk. When you think of it from a manufacturing standpoint, how are the manufacturing businesses you work with experiencing really the daily realities of what Ron had described today in his talk? So you've got the worker shortages, the skills gaps, and so much more. What are your thoughts on that topic?
Well, Ron, excellent information, and we are like singing from the same choir, so that's great to see. Manufacturers are facing a serious workforce challenge, definitely, not just in finding workers, but really securing employees with the right skills. So yes, like getting somebody to show up on time and just really investing in them is super important. But employers frequently share their struggles with us in filling position, which is going to lead to production delays. It's going to lead to extended lead times. And then they're even having to turn down new business opportunities that come to their door. So that's really frustrating for everyone. But on top of all of that, as seasoned workers retire, as Ron mentioned, the silver tsunami, we talk about that a lot, there's often no ready talent pool to take their place, which further widens the gap. So you've got these individuals that have been with the company for 30 plus years, and you have these entry-level workforce that are so nascent to the work, and then there's this middle gap. So there's, a huge demand there to upskill individuals to take over some of that knowledge and that tribal knowledge that is at, such a precipice of leaving. And really, to address these challenges, companies are focusing on developing their workforce from within. So that's a great thing that we're seeing. They are forming those partnerships with schools for hands-on training. They're restructuring roles to appeal to the new generation of workers, because we all know that they're not the same as those that have been working with them for 30 plus years. So with the Manufacturing Alliance, we actively are working to close this gap through apprenticeship programs, apprenticeship model programs, industry-led training initiatives, education partnerships that align with classroom learning with real-world industry needs. So we are taking our alliance voice as one and going to education to tell them what is needed, what are those skills gaps, what kind of programs do they need. So really, instead of passively waiting for skilled workers, manufacturers are stepping up to create and cultivate that talent that they really need. So that's what we're seeing.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, Genelle. And you're getting thumbs up all around, I think, from everyone, lots of head nods and so forth. I know that the panel's appreciating your frontline perspective, and I'm sure the audience is as well. And it's wonderful to hear what you all are doing to help address that shortage as well and the skill gap. So thank you for all the hard work that you and your organization are doing on that front. Sean, let's turn it over to you a little bit. The tool belt generation, as we've heard, it's a name that Gen Z is given, and a lot of them are turning away from the college path and looking into skilled trades. So tell us a little bit. I'd be curious, especially after looking at Ron's statistics, about the number of openings that do not actually require a college degree. I'm really curious to see, in your experience, are employers starting to see benefits from Gen Z embracing the skilled trades? And is this tool belt generation we keep hearing about real? Sean, what are your thoughts?
So yeah, back to mimic everybody else. I mean, Ron, phenomenal job. I couldn't agree any more with anything you said. And to answer your question, it's yes, but it's still developing. We are seeing, as Ron's chart showed, the Gen Z is a smaller piece of the puzzle. The millennial is still on the top, the largest employed, but we're seeing them slowly jump into the skilled trades because they're not wanting to go hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt and make the same pay as if you went straight out of a vocational school or of a high school. This is a generation of who's really getting around information, and they're starting to see the value of what a skilled trade position is rather than just only using your brain. Using brawn could potentially be more profitable. However, though, the demand still far outweighs the supply. There is a generational gap that we need to address, and time is not our friend here. Companies, though, that I work with that are actively going through Gen Z through mentorship or training programs or partnering with groups like Genelle's, they're the ones that are seeing the success. They're the ones that are seeing this new workforce come through. You know, the way they did it before with the baby boomers isn't the way they're going to need to do it with the Gen Zs. They're going to need to think differently. You're going to need to train and upskill. Employers cannot rely on experienced talent anymore because it's just not there. You have to build in-house training programs. You got to get apprentices. You got to have mentors, and you got to have initiatives, because that's what this generation is going to need. And the employers that are doing so, the ones that are partnering with schools and trade programs, they're the ones that are succeeding. It's the companies that are not adapting, the ones that aren't leveraging technology and automation where possible. Those are the people who are struggling, because innovation is critical to business, and not only the administrative world, you know, AI and other things, but in technology as well. And to ease the burden of labor shortages, the organizations that are bringing in this kind of piece are the ones that are succeeding, because Gen Z is a unique individual. They're technologically savvy, but also understanding the value of a dollar. They're wanting money. They are money hungry. They are wanting to do things. And with me saying money hungry, I want to emphasize that for employers they need to rethink their hiring criteria, because requiring years of experience isn't going to happen anymore. Like we said, there's a talent shortage. So you've got to be more bringing in the right people and training rather than focusing on just their transferable skills. If somebody's going to be showing up on time, they have the ability to learn and do so, and emphasize the growth and what's happening in our economy with the use of technology and other platforms. You know, I'm still hearing clients that are looking for manual CNC machinists. My guys, the Mazak has been around for a long time. Like, you got to evolve. So it is definitely a double-edged sword, but we're seeing a small uptick of Gen Z at a much higher, or let me say this, we're seeing Gen Z jump into this more aggressively than we've noticed a millennial workforce. But we are still far behind, to mimic Ron's point.
Can I make a comment here? Earlier this week, I've been all over the board, but earlier this week I did an AI panel, and we were just talking about the jobs, the tech jobs, all these kind of things. And somebody on that panel who had worked in the White House was talking about something that you sit there and you go, okay, it has a name now. I never knew that. So we always say that I was this many years old when I found out about it. So I was Tuesday this old when I found out about it. And he was talking about so many jobs have turned into diamonds. So jobs used to be Christmas trees, lots of entry-level jobs, and then the jobs got thinner as you went up. What's happened to our society over time, and this is not anything that new, but it's happening way too much in a disturbing way, is you don't want the entry-level person, and you don't really want that aged person now. Their skills are outdated, whatever, ageism, whatever we call it. No, you want those people in the middle. Well, everybody wants the people in the middle. So you're outspending each other for a group that will just leave you anyway, because they're not going to marry you. They're well into their career. They're going to keep job hopping. You're not creating loyalty at the bottom, and you're not creating loyalty by employing these people who other people may not be coveting as much anymore. There's such an opportunity for people to change a strategy. Everybody's sick of going and looking at job descriptions that said, I need 3 or 4 years experience. You give experience. That's your job. You let these people gain experience. And then what you're going to get back is a person that you've developed who is probably going to be way more loyal, especially if you're mentoring them in a healthy way that feels like they're part of something, versus a free agent that we see in sports. Free agents come in, do their thing for a little bit, and then they go free agent somewhere else. It's like, that's not how you build a culture. It's not how you build a sustaining product.
Thank you, Ron. And again, thank you everyone for submitting your questions. We will get to those here in a minute. I just want to say, Elaine, thank you for your comment. She's giving you all praise in the question box here. So what you're saying is definitely resonating here with the group. And I know we've had questions about whether or not the presentation will be available. There will be a landing page, and we'll drop this in the chat as well. As you all want to kind of comb back through and hear this again. I know it's a lot to take in, and I myself am looking forward to the replay. It's all so fascinating. Ron, I wanted you to keep scrolling back and forth between your slides because there were so many I wanted to continue to write down and just absorb those stats. It's fascinating. So Genelle, I'm going to come back to you with the next question here. And this was actually a question that came in. Really people enjoying what they're hearing and wondering, okay, well, what is the solution then if we need to do this? So I guess from your perspective, how do you think local engagement and community outreach really impacts the labor market? But what do you think employers, so you have a lot of employers on the call here today, at the local level, what should they be doing?
Yeah, well, with the Manufacturing Alliance, I'll speak to that. They play a critical role in shaping the workforce by investing in training programs, offering that hands-on learning opportunity like internships and apprenticeships, and supporting efforts to really bring diverse talent into the industry. So like Ron was saying, like Sean had mentioned as well, like these internships and training opportunities, it's so critical when you have, a very young developing individual, and they are getting to experience what it's like, not only on the job, but in your work, in your company, and what is the culture like and everything. And you're mentoring them in a healthy way, you're helping upskill them and learn the skills and everything, and you are really developing your next worker, and you're being able to see like how they're going to be. So we're definitely committed to fostering these connections through various things. We've got the Valley Made Manufacturing Summit, we've got collaboration with high schools, community colleges, advocacy to secure resources for workforce training. But when businesses engage locally, they help build a resilient and skilled labor force. So community involvement is essential for developing a strong talent pipeline. By partnering with schools, you're going to hear me say that over and over again, participating in career fairs, offering facility tours, super simple things. Manufacturers provide firsthand insights into the industry's opportunities, and these interactions break the outdated stereotypes, inspire young people to explore manufacturing as a viable and rewarding career path. People cannot be what they do not see. So when manufacturers open their doors, visit classrooms, offer internships and apprenticeships, they are reshaping these perceptions and interest in these types of careers. So we have witnessed the power of these connections firsthand. And by bridging education and industry, we're cultivating this culture of curiosity, of opportunity, ensuring the next generation is informed and they're inspired by this work and they're ready to contribute to the workforce. And locally, these efforts aren't just building a talent pipeline, they're really empowering communities and driving economic growth. And for employers that are looking to make an impact, it is essential to be proactive and intentional in community engagement. I cannot stress this enough. This means not just participating in career days, but forming those long-term partnerships with schools and educators. Those are going to be your pipeline. Collaborate on curriculum development to ensure that students are learning the skills relevant to your industry. You are the voice. You as employers, you are so important to educators. Consider mentorship programs that allow your current employees to share their knowledge while inspiring the next generation, that is going to help keep your current incumbent workers engaged and really interested. And additionally, flexible internships and apprenticeship programs can accommodate students' schedules, making these opportunities a lot more accessible to so many more individuals. So investing in talent just isn't good for the community, it's good for business as well. So build relationships early, employers can influence career choices, cultivate loyalty, lead to a more dedicated and skilled workforce. So where we are in an era that competition is fierce for talent. Engagement is a very good strategic advantage. So that's my point.
Thank you, Genelle.
Yeah.
I agree. I live in Summit County, Colorado, and the skilled workforce is critical to our entire environment. And as you're saying these things, I'm thinking people may be wondering, well, how exactly, who do I reach out to? So maybe think about, as you're here, and this could be in the follow-up we send as well, like who they should be looking up, who are some of those resources, who do they ask for when reaching out? I know I just went to an event, an economic event this week, specifically about job creation here in Summit County. So I'm very proactively looking and finding those groups to go to get involved and engaged. But maybe we can think about some of those resources for people who are interested and where they can specifically look. Obviously, your organization and you are a great resource, but just thinking about who do they look to and how do they ask? And Sean, I mean, obviously it's a competitive marketplace here and really thinking about that, but still we are having to overcome as employers no-shows and absenteeism. How, it's and that's on the rise. So how do you suggest people really address that as they're looking at this and having such a competitive marketplace?
We all can agree, and everyone, it's been beaten to, we are having a hard time finding good talent and finding skilled talent. Now, let's say in a perfect world, you found them. You brought in your purple unicorn or whatever, your diamond, whatever acronym you want to throw out there in today's world. Now they just don't show up. And I actually I like to say, look in the mirror. I think we need to understand and address the root cause of why people aren't showing up to your location. Because to Ron's point, to Genelle's point, there are plenty of people who are going to be wanting them. Trust me, they're not only taking your phone call, they're not only seeing your Indeed post, and they're not only being recruited by internal recruiters, they're being by external recruiters and a wide variety of things. So they are being communicated with, and they're the hot commodity. So we need to understand and address why they're not showing up. A lot of the time, is it a burnout? Is there something going on within the organization that it doesn't provide value to them? Because when the employee is the most coveted and they have, let's call it the power of the situation, we have to understand that we need to make it a place enjoyable for them to work. And Ron mentioned money, and I want to address it early. It's not all about money with Gen Z. Money is important, but time is even more important. This is the generation of travel, and this is the generation of family. Baby boomers they were raised, you go to work 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, would be part-time work. You work Monday to Sunday. And then they had an entire generation of children who their parents worked every single day. And this generation then had the millennials and Gen Zers, and they are all about family. They're about time and spending it with others. They're the type that will clock in and out 40, 45 hours a week, and employers just have to accept that. That is just the workforce that is coming, and I am seeing that. So instead of incentivizing people only by money, a lot of the time it could be by schedule. Making your place an available schedule to where they could be working parents, or they could go to their son's baseball game, or they could go to whatever it may be, attend something that maybe an employer in the past didn't see as a value. It could be a kindergarten graduation. My dad thinks that's an absolute joke. To me and my wife, that was not a joke. I wanted to be there to watch my famous Taylor walk across that stage, and that's valuable to me. So meeting your workforce and providing what they value most, not always what you value most. So that could be creating a sense of belonging, making them feel like they're part of the organization. To Genelle's point, they're part of a positive part of our community. Yeah. donating and spending time out to the community, yeah, it makes you feel good. It makes your business look good. It makes your employees proud to be there. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying everybody needs to be the Amazon of the world or the Microsoft of the world or whatever it may be, but you could be locally, you could support a local charity, a baseball team, a soccer team, a hockey team. It could be a chess club. It could be a wide variety of things that you could be a part of that could really build that sense of belonging. But again, I believe that absenteeism and no-call, no-shows is because an employee did not see value of showing to work that day. And the value to them could be different than to you. Time, money, or belonging are the three things that I try to tell my employers to focus on. And to solve that, you really need to look in a mirror and say, why is it me? Because there are a lot of organizations that do not have chronic absenteeism because they're providing value to their employees to show up every day to build a good to then be sold out to market.
Yeah.
So my advice is look at
I
mirror.
appreciate that perspective. Yeah, you know what, it's a different perspective than we often hear, and I really enjoyed learning from that. Thank you, Sean. Okay, so we do have a few questions. We're almost out of time. A lot of the questions that came in were really comments and just saying thank you. They can't wait to share this replay with their staff and see your slides run and all of the data and information. So I will there are questions if we have time that we can get to, and for anyone, just know the ones we don't get to, we will follow up with you and make sure you get an answer. And Sean, this may be one for you, and we'll open it up to everyone, but do you see employers hiring specific positions to train and mentor to develop the incoming Gen Z skilled labor workers?
I would tell you that it's the mindset of the employer. There are some employers that just say, hey, I need to find a good individual I could train and build and mold and show a career path to the prospective employee. But right now, I would say more hiring is trying to throw a dart. They're trying to throw a dart and find the perfect person and get it, where we need to, again, expand training, mindset, build the opportunity, not find the perfect person right off the get-go.
Okay. Thank you, Sean. I'm going to fly through these questions so we can get to as many as possible. As a baby boomer who is still working, I still find significant age bias in hiring process. Why, given the employment picture and lack of experienced talent, does this bias still exist? Ron, do you want to take that one?
I get asked the ageism question a lot, and I am an ex. It exists for several reasons. One is oftentimes this is how you end up in that diamond situation. Let's say that you're in an occupation that kind of caps out where experience is of value. So you could be in a job that, look, you don't need to have 30 years experience doing it, like 5 is great. Well, sometimes people are used to, like, I've been doing this a long time, I expect to be paid like for somebody who has this amount of experience, but the market isn't rewarding that experience. So sometimes there's this kind of adjusting of expectations. That happens sometimes. There are sometimes when it's just outright just ageism, where they're like, well, how much longer are we going to have this person? Which is funny to me because they get a younger person who quits 3 weeks later anyway. I think that it's not something easily overcome. This is where I would like to see, people like in Sean's world as well, as brokering those conversations to talk about, like, we've got people who can come in, they're experts at doing this, they'll take this pay rate. So I think it's just something we have to be aware of. But yeah, it stinks. I know.
Yeah, I know. All right, well, we are almost out of time. Ron, Sean, Genelle, thank you so much for all of your wonderful insights here today. And again, I think there's a lot we can follow up with, and specifically to help everyone get more engagement in their local communities. Genelle, I took away so much from you myself that I'm going to go back into our community and see ways that we can get engaged and involved. So thank you all so much for your insights. Finally, PrideStaff, thank you for hosting another important learning event, a wonderful turnout, great questions. Again, any questions we didn't answer, we will follow up with you directly. And with that, Sean, I'm going to turn it over to you to give us the final wrap up on this one. And just thank you, Sean, for having me again to help moderate the conversation.
Well, Leslie, a big shout out to you too. You did a fantastic job. So thank you for always doing this. us in task, because I think all three of us here could have kept going, and we definitely needed the
Oh my
guys.
gosh.
Ron, Genelle, I've met you both personally, and I appreciate you both taking time out of your day. You both are so knowledgeable. Ron, The Rising Storm, it's an awesome piece. I've read it. I encourage everyone to read this piece. And again, thank you for everything you shared with us. And Genelle, you're part of an incredible association. You have 2 titles and a working mom. I mean, you have so many things that you put on and put aside to be here today and help all these people. So I genuinely appreciate everything you're doing. And we have people across the country on this call. So if anybody wants to see a good local organization, the San Joaquin Valley Manufacturing Alliance is an absolutely phenomenal group. Jump on their website, sjvma.org, and look at it, mimic it, copy it. I'm sure she'd love to help you and expand that. And again, to our audience, you've taken a time out of your day in 1 hour, and I appreciate it. So we will be doing another series, and I look forward to having a conversation again and seeing everybody sooner than later.
Fantastic. Thank you again. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.